This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
So I want to share with you two ha'aras of the Ben La'ashri, the Tzadik of Ra'anana. Parsha Lecha, Perek Beis, Pasuk Dalid, Vayelech Avram, Ka'asher Diber Elav Hashem, Vayelech Itoi Loit. Who went with Abraham? Loit. The lashon is Itoi, with him. Itoi. Then Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Aleph, Vayal Avram mi Mitzrayim, Hu Ishtoi, Hu ve'Ishtoi v'chashalei v'loit Imoi. In the beginning of the Parsha, it's Itoi, with him. Then in Yud Gimel Aleph, V'loit Imoi. Then Yud Gimel Hey, V'gam loit ha'holech es Avram. Why the change, asks the Ben La'ashri in his ha'ara, from Imoi, from in the beginning of the Parsha, Itoi, to Imoi, to Es. Why the change? Furthermore, the Ben La'ashri asks the following question. It says, Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Beis, Avram kaved ma'od. Avram was very laden. Ba'mikneh, ba'kesef u'vazahav. Okay, vayilech l'masa'av. And then, what did Lloyd have? V'gam loit halech Avram hayot soin uvakar v'oy halim, and tents. It doesn't say tents by Abraham. Why does it say tents by Lloyd? That is the question of the Tzadik of Ra'anana, the Ben La'ashri. I would like to offer my own suggestion, but first let's hear what the Ben La'ashri has to say. And he says the answer to the question of why it says Oyhalim by Lloyd and not by Avram will help us answer the diyukim why in the beginning of the Parsha it says Itai, then Imai, and then Es. And he says as follows. He says it could be that of course Abraham had tents, but it didn't have to say it because for all practical purposes, it does say it. It says, "Vayilech l'masav minegav yad beisel ad hamakom asher hayisham ahaloi batchila," to the place that his tent was in the beginning, bein beisel uvein ha'oi el makayim hamizbeach asher asa sham barishana. So in the beginning, it does not have to say and talk about Abraham's tents because clearly Abraham already had tents, as the Pasuk says, ad hamakom asher hayisham ahaloi batchila, and then in Perek Yud Beis Pasuk Ches earlier it says so we know Abraham had tents, and at that point in time it didn't have to talk about Lot's tents because Lot was sort of subsumed and batel to Abraham Avinu. Lot sort of deferred. He was subsidiary to Abraham Avinu. He did not have his own name on the tents, and therefore it did not have to talk about Lot's tents, merely Abraham's tents. However, at this point in time, Lot begins to be tempted by going to Sodom. And the reason why he was tempted, says the Ben La'ashri, is he was affected by his stay in Mitzrayim. And the Tumah of Mitzrayim is starting to chip away at Lot. And he decides he needs to separate from Abraham. And therefore now Lot has to have his own tents. These tents are called Oyhale Lot. These are Oyhale Resha. Like it says, Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Yud Beis, Vayehal ad Sodom. Now Lot is sort of making his own home for himself. The tents of Abraham were a continuation of Abraham's tents are connected to the Mizbeach, at which he was Kareh B'Shem Hashem. And originally Lot was part of that quarters because Lot was secondary and subsidiary to Abraham Avinu. However, now Lot begins to have his own attitudes, his own ideas. He was affected by being Mitzrayim, and now he's being drawn to Sodom. This, says the Ben La'ashri, may explain why in the beginning it says Vayelech Itoi Lot. Itoi is a lashon of Es. He's subsidiary. He's batel. He becomes nishtabe to Avraham Avinu. He's ancillary to Abraham. He's Itoi. He is batel to him, and that's the reason why his tents are not mentioned. And that is the reason why it says Itoi. And yes, that is why in Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Hey V'gam Loit HaHolech Es Avram Haya Tzoinu Vakar V'Oyalim, when it talks about Lot's wealth, it says the word Es, and Rashi says what caused Lot to be wealthy? The fact that he went with Abraham, but not just that he went, but he was batel to Abraham, and he was nishtabe to Abraham, and he was ancillary to Abraham. However, in the beginning of Perek Yud Gimel, now Lot begins starting to get his own ideas, and he's starting to be inclined towards Sodom because of his stay in Mitzrayim. So now it's no longer Veloit Itai, now it's Veloit Imai. Now Lot, so to speak, is his own personality, has his own agenda, and instead of Itai, which implies subsidiary, but now he's Imai, he's his own person. And says the Ben Lashri, that is why it does not say Oy Halim by Avraham, because we already know he had Oy Halim. But Lot, now for the first time, he's sort of trying to make his own space and his own reputation for himself. So it introduces Hayot Sainu Vakar Oy Halim. I would like to suggest as follows. The Bereshis Rabbah says in Parsha Mem Aleph Pasuk Daled Hayot Sainu Vakar Oy Halim. The Medrash Darshans Rav Tuvia Bar Yitzchak Amar Shnei Oy Halim, 2 tents. Now, a Isha Chashuva is called a tent, and these 2 tents refer to Rus Hamayaviyah V'Na'ama Ha'amoinis, who would come out of Lot. By the way, just a side point, the Yefei Tayar says beautifully, the reason why Lot was Zoichet to have 2 great righteous women come out of her, it's because Es Avram. It's because of his association with Avraham. But be it as it may, the word Oihalim specifically refers to Rus and Naama. In fact, the Yedei Moshe on the Medrash says, Chazal derive that it refers to Rus and Naama because it says Oihalim by Lot and not by Avraham. So here that's the answer. It says Oihalim by Lot and not by Avraham because it's specifically referring to these 2 great descendants that would come from Lot, which did not come specifically from the line of Avraham, and therefore it says it, the word Oihalim by Lot, and it does not say it by Avraham. Okay, this is the great presentation of the Ben La'ashri, the Tzadik of Ra'anana. Wishing everyone an amazing day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.